Welcome back to Morning Trade Live. Right now, the Dow is up. Okay, right? I have to make that announcement. Maybe you like that. The Dow is up 34 points right now. It's been an incredible month of May. The S&P up nearly 6% for this month of May. It's time for Chartmaster. We're in the thick of earnings season. I know many have reported, but still more names to watch. Jenny Horne looking at the fundamentals. Rick Ducat will go through the technicals. And we still have a few names on the docket for next week. So we'll start with one that's of big interest, and that is Crowdstrike. Jenny, tell us a little bit about the fundamentals here.
Yeah, I think that Crowdstrike is eager to put the last fiscal year behind it. Of course, we've seen this name that has been marred with so many issues, really in regards to the July 19th outage, in which we saw so many various, repercussions of that day of outages. From the airlines to various government entities, it just has been a nightmare for Crowdstrike. But you would never even know it from looking at the recovery and the strength this name has continued to show. It's been frankly impressive. We've seen a pretty nice history of post-earnings moves as well. 5 of its last 8 earnings reports, we saw shares move higher, including 3 back-to-back gains of over 10% from November of 2023 through June of 2024. So the average next day swing is around 7%, regardless of direction over the last 2 years. This time around, we are seeing options markets pricing in about a 10% move. So short-term options are seeing a bit more of this bearish lean. Right now, there has been a put call open interest that stands at around 127, which is about the 99th percentile of all earnings reads. So all that to be considered, I think that it's encouraging the way this company has been able to come back. Typically, we've seen, or historically from the cybersecurity space, there's usually very fragmented offerings, which is why no single company really dominates market share of the cybersecurity world. But more so and more so, Crowdstrike as well as Palo Alto Networks are trying to make themselves this one-stop shop for cybersecurity offerings. So that is available with their Falcon platform, which has done quite well, and that's expected to lead a lot of the enthusiasm for this quarter. But cybersecurity has been a bit of a mixed picture following its earnings. So I think a lot of it is really tied to the macro, and these companies do trade in step with AI, but also still heavily tied to the overall market.
All right, thank you for that. So let's take a look at the Crowdstrike chart, please, Rick Ducat. Your thoughts?
Yeah, a big push upward from those lows that we experienced recently during the tariff news cycle. But it's a chart that looks quite a bit different than many other charts in the tech sector. In this case, we can see that our low point that we saw here matched up with this gap from previously in the year. And then we held the line in terms of closing prices there near about 309. So after this rather W-shaped recovery here, we bumped up against the 392 level several times, this green line. We have made another push to the upside. We have taken out the old highs at our red line near 455.59, and now the support, this old resistance area that's now become supportive, is being held for now. So the next step for the bulls would be to take out those highs near 474.23. And this could be an interesting situation here because we can see that RSI is continuing to travel higher along with price. We're not really seeing a lot of divergence or anything like that for the short-term phase that we're seeing right here. So if we were to include our standard deviation channel studies and our volume profile studies, we can see that the volume node that's closest to current price activity is right here near 430, but it pales in comparison to the point of control down here near 379. So this is the heaviest trading area, but 430 is also a notable trading area. You can also see our 63-day EMA lines up with our linear regression line near about 410. That could be another supportive point, but for resistance, our +1 standard deviation channel pretty close to our recent highs here. So that's really a more emphasis on this as a point to clear.
Okay. Next up, should we take a look at Broadcom, one of the last semiconductor names to report earnings this cycle, many of which have done well, not all. But what are some of the expectations? What are people focusing on when it comes to Broadcom? Jenny?
It's all things cloud infrastructure, Nicole, as it has been for a lot of these companies with exposure to AI. But I was looking at actually its performance over the last 5 years compared to the Mag 7, because I feel like Broadcom gets somewhat unfairly pushed aside, but it's actually, if you made it part of the, say, called Mag 8, it is the second best performer on the last 5 years. It's gained over 820%, which is just behind NVIDIA's over 1,400% rally, but still well ahead of Tesla, which is up about 520%. So it outpaces the majority of the Mag 7 as far as its longer-term gains. It's come back now so substantially from this year's lows. I mean, it's really been an impressive story for Broadcom, gaining over almost 26% this month. And right now, also receiving some recent votes of confidence. We did see Redburn Atlantic recently give a buy, adding to other enthusiastic calls from Melius Research and Mizuho. First quarter results, which we did see last quarter, showed a 25% jump in terms of their earnings and overall just revenue. So those continue to rise pretty substantially. Also, right now, this company still remains up over 70% on the 12-month basis. So based on last quarter's strength, also the fact that this AI and infrastructure software continues to really grow, I mean, up about 40% last quarter. I think all of this is really a strong testament to their future growth and everything that we can expect now going into this print. So far, what I was seeing as far as recent sentiment, it's nothing but bullish. So I also think the vote of confidence from the street and the recovery throughout the month of May does set us up for hopefully what is a strong report, but also, again, that high bar can be difficult to exceed, although NVIDIA was able to do so this week. And I do tend to think of them as, Broadcom at least, a formidable competitor to NVIDIA in the AI space. They're different companies, of course, but I think that when you're looking at the leaders of AI, you have to consider Broadcom one of the absolute most important names. The unfortunate thing is that they always report so late in the cycle, but I'm sure based on the consistency of their reports, we'll see hopefully that same strength in this report.
Yeah, and with NVIDIA's good news yesterday sort of floats all AI boats, at least for a short term. We'll see what Broadcom gives us. How about you take a look, Rick, at the chart? It's at 241 today.
Yes, another chart that's approaching a key resistance level here near these highs. In this case, we can see, though, that we had our 52-week high around the same time many other stocks did, but from there we saw a downward sloping trend line here that was broken. We had a nice gap to the upside, and now you could draw this white trend line starting with the tariff news lows, and also this green horizontal line representing the low point after our gap up. So that comes in near 216 or so. Notice as well that we haven't even really retested that post gap low. Price continues to mostly follow along to this shorter term trend line here. So the 250 level, that's the mark to beat now in terms of our closing high. That was about the best closing high. The best intraday highs were just below 252. So we can see now that our moving averages are continuing to diverge farther apart and prices above all three of them. That suggests the trend is not really slowing down or coming to a pause yet. RSI also still remains in the overbought area as we come up to earnings shortly here next week. So if we were to look at some other studies here, we can see that the heavy volume area closest to current prices comes in right around here near 230. We can also see that similarly to our last chart, our +1 standard deviation channel, which would be a measure of a relatively extreme price move in line with its own price history here, that would come in very close to those highs once again. So 247, 250 could be a resistance area to watch out for if we do retreat back below our 230 volume area. The gap low, the post gap low, 216 or so. That's the other mark to watch.
Yeah. Okay. So that's our world of technology. And then we switch to retail and Lululemon. And we've seen a lot of great retailers this week. But what about Lululemon? It's been a little more volatile. And what are we watching for with the company's report next Thursday?
It has been a little bit more volatile, and I think that its exposure to so many of these Asia-Pacific countries is what the concern was. A lot of these athletic and footwear retailers really took a hit as a result of the post-Liberation Day selling. So, I mean, Lululemon was no exception. It is a Canada-based company, but 70% of its revenue is derived from the U.S., so might as well, to me, then be basically a U.S.-focused company. This name also has really tried to shift into more menswear, more of a family type shopping experience, although with its slowed growth in 2024 and tough competition, some of that growth has been a bit disappointing. I mean, right now, there are still so many Lululemon loyalists. I mean, while consumer caution does remain, there is still, I think, this overhang of like what spending looks like. Lululemon is not cheap by any means, but typically in the past, we've said that actually could insulate you from some of the volatility because you have a consumer that's willing to pay a bit more. Although I was just curious because I have recently, I'm not really even sure why, I've been into the Lululemon store several times. It's always packed. I mean, you'd never know there was any consumer stress at all, but it does feel like their discount offerings have increased in a way where it's actually wonderful. Usually you can never find things in there we made too much category in your size, like it's very picked over. Now it's like a formidable part of their website, and so I was actually just doing some research on that, and it's true. They have right now the most heavily discounted offerings they ever have, and so that's, I think, why we're seeing it as consumers. Perhaps that also bodes well if they're able to give this affordability element. I do feel like with Lululemon's yoga pants starting at, to me, like basically $100, anytime you see the price tag below that level, you feel like you're getting a good deal, which has definitely resonated with consumers this quarter. So I think that internationally, we're going to see that growth thwarted a bit this quarter, but there is still good things happening with the company trying to, of course, be more affordable.
And let's take a look at the chart. $313 today, Rick. Thank you for that, Jenny.
Yes, perhaps a bit of more of a struggle for this particular chart than our other two here. What I mean by that is that we can see, like so many other stocks, we had a high point near the end of last year, beginning of this year. In this case, it was a bit of a disappointment here because this high exceeded some recent highs here. Then we had the fall off here, the bottoming out down here at our tariff news lows. But if you backtrack a little bit, this 245 level, our light green line, matches up with some key stopping points here. It was a key support level. It was breached briefly here, but it did come back, and it mostly held on once again here further down the timeline. So now we can see that we have a short-term white trend line going up from those lows. However, now we are sandwiched in between our moving averages, long-term purple 252 to the upside, short-term 21 and 63 EM exponential moving averages to the downside. Our moving averages to the downside near 305, 306 lines up very closely with this low point and then our post gap high point here. So this could be another notable price level to consider. Momentum interrupted here. Our green trend line has been broken for now. We can see as well that price is starting to form a bit of a range here, more of a sideways drift. And our trend line has been broken here today. Temporarily, where maybe it'll recover, but for now it's looking like we're holding on below that key metric. So if we were to also look at our other studies here, we can see that we are within a heavy volume area right here. So this range between about 305 to 325 will be important for price to work its way through. If we were to move higher, 352 comes in right about here. That would be a key area to watch as well.
All right. Rick Ducat, Jenny Horne, thank you both so very much. Wonderful to see you both. Thanks. Good luck there at 3 Key Names.